stands on page. Please all check your mind.
Yep. Mine.
Okay, so we'll start with comments from the board and the superintendent. So just go down the row. Sadie.
Oh, wow. First off, hi, I'm excited to be back. I'm excited for this year. Lots of exciting changes. We still need to fill this vacant spot next to me. So please let everybody know that that's still open. And yeah, I'm excited to get started in this new school year with the Aaron taking the reins, and I think it'll be great. That's all I've got right now.
I sure like our new seating arrangement, or I should say our old seating arrangement. Slightly changed. I like the horseshoe shape, so that we can make eye contact with each other as we converse. So it's a great start to a new year for the school board. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Welcome.
Yeah, just the summer has flown by, and so looking forward to starting a new year. And my first full year as a school board member, so still learning, but I had to wash my son's backpack, so I'm like fully in. It's back to school mode. I don't know, mom isn't ready, but the kid is so excited to get back to school. He just loves it. So that's it.
And I don't have much except note that we showed great improvement in our student achievements and 3 schools at least, and 1 teacher chosen by the chamber as a teacher, the outstanding teacher of the year. The war, yeah, the war's on. And hopeful that our thankful for our labor sisters and brothers in the classified union to have a contract, and hopeful that our friends in the certificated union will also reach the final agreement before we start school. And also happy to have Aaron on board as our superintendent.
Appreciate that. All right, I think it's my opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah, so I want to start by thanking you for tonight, for being here, for your commitment to the school district, and for your confidence in me. And I appreciate, and just like Sadie, you said, I'm very excited, and I've been, it's been my word of choice as people have asked me about this new role that I'm in, and I'm excited about what we've been doing, the direction we're going, and this opportunity. So I appreciate, again, your trust in me, and I know that we are going to do really good work. And so, and knowing that we need a position 2 filled. And so, yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. So, yeah, so I've got several things I want to talk about. I think one of the first things is, Chuck, and you mentioned the space, and this is very similar to what we had prior to changing it. So, and Les did a lot of this, and working with Corey and Julie and setting this up, and Matt as well. So we have everything we need. Currently, we're recording this using that camera, which is, I think you are aware, there was a statute, recent statute, and so we're required to record. So we have audio recordings, and so we have video and audio recordings that we'll hang on to store for a year. And so that if you have additional comments or questions about that, we can certainly discuss it. But we will have a camera that's going to be on the wall and be stationary, and not using the camera on the tripod in the near future. So appreciate that work being taken care of, as that's this requirement. Budget update. So there have been no changes to the budget that Chris presented June 11th. And so if anyone is interested, they can go to our website, where we have it identified. The presentation that she gave on June 11th is listed there. So we have no adjustments at this point, revisions to that budget. And in our next board meeting, we'll talk more in depth about the budget, and review that as you make a decision regarding the budget. So that's a bit of an update. Celebrations.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Do we have any new enrollment data?
So we have a little bit of, as Chiska, that's one of the major things that she does, and our principals are back. So we're looking at, new enrollments, whether students are moving within a district or within the district at different buildings. So we're in the process of updating, our enrollment
Mhm.
to actual, we really, we want to see them, on day one,
Yeah.
day two, day three. So we really, that's helpful to see them actually, in buildings. So then we know for a fact. But we are getting more enrollment. We're also having students who are making different decisions. So as those, and what happens is it doesn't always come through directly through district office as a request. It might be a phone message in a building. So our secretaries who are returning next week, they'll be checking messages, checking email, same with our building principals, and then communicating with district office regarding enrollment updates. So we are still waiting on some decisions about enrollment. And when I get into personnel updates, I'll share more information about personnel and how we made those decisions based on enrollment. So celebrations that we have a few that I just want to share, and you maybe have seen these because they've been posted or they were shared another way and you heard about it. So and in June, we knew that we had 3 of our schools were recognized by the state based on their scores. And so we published that. That was Canyon Creek, Cumberland River Gorge, and Washougal Learning Academy. So that was exciting news based on state assessment results from previous years. So those are schools in distinction. The high school sent a team to Florida. They received an award, the School of Distinction Award through Jostens. So our high school students and Tammy Grant and Kyla Ritchie, who's our ASB teacher and has a lot to do with our students, the leadership work that's happening. They were recognized by this national award, and there's more work to be had. They're actually seeking the next step in the recognition. So that's going to continue, and that really is something that aligns well with what youth prioritize as student voice, and that's our students sharing with us, and actually not just sharing what they're looking for, but what they're doing in partnering with us. So that was a pretty exciting award. Our CTE department was recognized for their service and dedication to CTE for the 2nd year in a row by their national and state organization. We had a book donation for $2,000 to Gauze Library by Bill and Becky Smead. And so I happened to be there, and Tracy was there when the books were there, but the Smeads came by to see the books and brought some of their family and friends. So we really appreciate their partnership and their generosity in helping Gauze. So they have a connection with our Gauze library media instructor, Perry. And so I just really appreciate that they showed that generosity. I think that's going to be a partnership that's going to continue for us. So that's just exciting. And those are books that are actually, they're very durable. And when you look at the books, they were, she was very intentional with the books that she chose. So students see themselves in the books that they're reading. So exciting. Our culinary team received an award, a national recognition, the Healthy Meals Incentive Recognition Award. And this is for programs that are scratch made like ours is. And so we appreciate that recognition, the work they're doing, and that's going to continue. We received a grant for staff wellness. Margaret Rice wrote the grant as we received it last year. So this is another similar resources that we received last year, and just working on staff wellness, which is a high priority for me in this role. In my previous role, it's important that our staff are well, that they feel supported, and that they truly look forward to coming to work every day and proud of the work that we're doing. But we want them to be physically well, mentally well, socially well. So this is what we're focusing on. It happens to be a board policy that we have in workforce trauma and recognizing the impact of the educators that they do. So then we have our soccer team, unified student participants. 2 of them went through the Seattle Saunders program, and they traveled to Columbus, Ohio. They played an all-star game. So just phenomenal. So Coach Williams, who went along with them, chaperoned them, and really is the leader he's the coach that just facilitates and encourages participation, and just that's so exciting for them to have that opportunity. Yeah, so there's a few more items. I think I'll save them for our next board meeting, but they're
Still
just,
meeting.
yeah, there's a lot of good things that are happening. And I appreciate when we can share publicly what's happening. So, yeah, a lot of good things.
Yeah.
Okay, personnel update. So the spring was challenging. We made lots of reductions. And so we have had an opportunity now through the last week of June, quite a bit through July. As far as certificated staff, we actually had eliminated 18 positions. 2 of those positions were filled by people who resigned. So then there's 16 individuals who were in essence riffed. And of the 16, so we had 7 that we've recalled of the 16. The 7 individuals we have recalled to positions that have opened up since we made those decisions. So one example is a TK that we added at Gauze. So that in May, we hadn't made that decision. We made that decision later in June. So we were able to contact an individual who was on the recall list, and that individual accepted the position. So that was exciting that we have a TK at Gauze, which we haven't had before. So that means that we have 4 TK programs, 1 in each elementary school. And we have individuals on a waiting list, and we're still interviewing students who are interested. Yeah, it is awesome. So we have a waiting list for TK. So we have again added the TK at Gauze. We had a staff member resign, and so we filled that position with a staff member on the recall list. It actually happened multiple times where staff have made a different decision, gone to a different district, which opened up a position, and then we just went to our recall list for our process, identified in the CBA, and going through the seniority list by their order of seniority. So excited about the 7 recalled. 5 of the 16 have jobs elsewhere. So we currently have 4 staff members on the recall list who are still looking for work. And so we are still in contact with them. And so might be a possibility with us this fall.
How many did you say?
So there are 4.
4 left.
Yeah, 4 that have not, do not currently have a job. So with the classified staff, many of this classified staff that were impacted are still with us. Not all of them are, but majority of them are. They're in different roles, and we're still making decisions about open positions because individuals, this continues to happen through August and really early into September. And in September, we'll be posting some positions for our combination classrooms. So we know we have some openings for the classified staff that we're still going to be posting. Let's see, training update. So last Monday, all of our administrators, including the directors, really and supervisors, continue to work through the summer. Our principals, many of them took time off in July. Not all of them. We had summer school. They support during summer school, but they reported back to work last Monday. We went to this safety summit, which was at Mountain View. This is something that happens every year at this time, the first basically Monday in August. And so that was our first time together back as a team, and really the new team. But it's there's a few individuals who are not part of the team, but it is a team that we've been together for a while. And I have a lot of confidence. I shared that with them, a lot of confidence in this building and district leadership team. We've been together, we've been through a lot, and I continue to see them striving to improve. So our time together started on Monday, and then we were all together on Tuesday, and our focus has been on systems, but we really started talking about our why we're in education and who has impacted us in a positive way as a family member. So that was our kind of our warm-up community building opportunity. And I think it's gone really well. But we've been focusing on self, like ourselves as leaders, as employees, as individuals, and an idea of just being the best we can be and what needs to be in place for us to be, again, healthy and being supported. So those are the conversations we've had. It has led to what we're going to be doing August 26th, which is when all staff are invited back. And you were invited to that as well. I think Corey sent an invitation out to you. And I know that I have scheduled meetings with some of you on that day. And I'd like to have those at the high school where all of our staff members are going to be invited on that day. We're gonna make a slight change when our offices are open. We had previously mentioned or identified on our calendar that the 26th was the day that all buildings would be open. We're gonna move that to the 27th. So all staff can be together on the 26th. We need a day where we can all be together. And the message, it's a social emotional learning day. And it's a day about adult SEL. So that's where our focus is going to be on. And we're all gonna be at the high school for the entire day. And so if you have an opportunity to join us, we'll all be together in the auditorium for the first 90 minutes, and then they're gonna be breaking out in different classrooms.
And other than that, the first day for staff coming back is
August 26th.
26.
So for all staff, secretaries come back a little sooner.
Yeah.
They have extra days.
Yeah.
Our, many of our custodians are 260s. They've stayed with us all summer, getting the
Yeah.
buildings ready, maintenance and grounds, facilities.
We've seen them.
They're 260, yeah, and then we were just discussing,
Yeah.
yeah, they are, you should start to see them on building sites, getting the buildings ready. And so, Tate and I were just discussing that, like what we're seeing, like the jump to guard football field is green.
Good.
Looking
It's
good.
looking in
Yeah.
good shape because we've been watering it. We're watering the fields at the high school. The grounds are, it's a small team, but they're a mighty team and they are getting the buildings ready for students and staff. But Chuck, it's August 26th is the day that the majority of staff are back. And then we have 4 days of training. 2 of those days are classified staff, all the classified staff on Monday, some of the classified staff on Thursday, and all certificated staff Monday through Thursday. And then the students are going to be arriving the next Tuesday.
How was that?
I know,
How was that even?
I know July flew by and August is flying by.
Crazy.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's my update.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. So next, we're going to discuss the timeline and the process for finding a District 2 representative.
Yes, so I appreciate you've shared with me, I shared with you a document that had the timeline and the process that we had followed previously. And I shared with you that this position has been posted through our what's called application or talent ed, or the process that all of our employees or future employees apply, substitutes apply to the same system. So that application manager system, we have a job description for this district director of position 2. So anyone who's interested will apply through that system. So the job description, the essential functions are identified, shared with you the timeline, and you have that. When working on the interview questions, there's been some suggestions into that tool. So I've updated the questions using like a strike through and then red text. It just shows you that that's what I'm recommending, that we update it, the questions. And so I didn't know if you had any questions about the timeline, the process. This is a very similar process that we've used, I think, the last 2 times we've had a position open. We were advertising a little bit longer than we did the last time, but we thought because it's in summer,
Yeah.
that would be necessary to do that. And I think it's been, I've seen it published or identified in the Post-Rec, the Columbian, different news feeds. And I'm not sure, the goal was to get it in the River Talk. I'm not sure that it's in there or not. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, any questions, concerns, wonders about?
Have you had any applications come through?
We have not had any official applications come through. We have had people express interest.
Okay,
And someone stopped by and visited with Corey and just had some questions.
good.
Yeah, so we have 2 weeks. It'll officially close, I think we talked about the 27th.
I think, like you said, when school starts and word gets out a little bit more, once people are more focused in school again.
Yeah.
I think it'll catch.
Do you think I hate to say this, is it worth considering extending the deadline until school really starts and kids are back? Or-
Well, I
I
think
don't
that
think we can, but.
if we did, it would just be a few days. Because we have that we definitely want to make a decision September 10th.
Right.
Yeah, I think we've already published dates.
Yes,
And I think once we start seeing people start looking at school again, I think we'll see more movement.
hopefully.
I think so.
Okay, I don't have any questions or wonders about this?
Good.
Well, just hoping people are interested in applying.
Yeah,
And maybe brief synopsis of what happens if no one applies.
right. So if
Just for-
we don't have, yeah, so I think the idea is that we're gonna reach out to ESD with 12. And as we approach that date, I'll reach out to them and it's, you know, see what kind of support they can provide us in placing someone. The time being. Yeah, so
Great.
that, yeah, definitely we'll have, you know, that identified and working with them. I have not reached out to them to ask, you know, what
Hopefully
if.
we won't.
Yeah, so I know we have a short window of time here. So definitely finding out what support they can provide. And then what is the process when they come in and assist the district with this
Okay.
situation?
And how long and all of that.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in that too.
Okay,
Any other questions? You guys? Okay. Uh, discuss the dates for the upcoming listening tours.
yes, so when we look at the dates, we added one, so we have October 8th. And October 15th, and October 8th and October 15th are both gonna be at Excelsior from 4:30 to 6. And what we thought we would do is have October 8th be for staff. And that 4:30 starting time, I believe, allows the majority of our staff to get to Excelsior after school is out. So that's 4:30 to 6, October 8th. And, you know, we had identified like possibly in October, could we have themed, like these could be themed listening tours? And that really hasn't been our practice.
Yeah.
But we were wondering I'm wondering if you're supportive of that. And in conversation, and what we kind of penciled in was like talk about the superintendent search, but I wonder maybe could it be about our strategic plan, the direction of the district? And really, this is the 6th year of our current strategic plan.
Yeah.
And it's a 6-year plan. So we're really gonna be needing to look at, you know, what kind of changes, edits, adjustments do we want to make after this year? And so the idea of talking about the direction of the district and asking staff what are their thoughts, and in a similar way that we have done the listening tours where there's a board member at each table with either a building or district leader that's there. And sometimes the superintendent has been separate. Sometimes superintendents join a table, so we can just kind of talk about what the interest is doing either one. I think I know in my role, I've kind of moved around different tables, and I like how it's somewhat structured, but we want people who are there to feel free to talk to whoever they want to talk to.
Yeah.
And again, the beauty of it is it's two-way communication. And
Yeah.
so you have an opportunity to not just listen, but then share different perspective as well as our district and building leaders.
Those have certainly been very valuable.
Yeah.
One thing is, you mentioned Excelsior. Would it be possible to have one up River Road at the VF?
Absolutely, yes. So, yeah, so the plan right now is October 8th and 15th will be at Excelsior.
Okay,
The second one will be community. It'll be a similar theme. And it doesn't mean that a staff member can't attend that one. They
Right.
certainly can.
Right.
And then the 11th at Columbia River Gorge. February 11th, Columbia River Gorge, same time, 4:30 to 6. April 8th at Hathaway, 4:30 to 6. And then back to the Legion Hall, June 3rd, 4:30 to 6.
And I'm thinking, that June 3rd one could also focus on the strategic plan, because that's
Yeah.
what we need to focus on for the following year. I don't know how much we work
Yeah.
on it until then, but
Right.
I think that would be.
Can you correct me? I was under the impression we needed to develop that strategic plan this year.
I don't think I don't think we need to develop it this
Okay.
year. I think
Okay,
the
good.
idea of we start in the process that we did last year, and Liz could speak to this with much more detail. Although I was involved, he really facilitated the entire process. And so that's something maybe we could revisit, August 27th, we could talk a little bit about
Okay.
Mhm.
that. So like a historical perspective and what we're thinking moving forward
That'd be a
on, and I can just tell you. and-
Process. and-
Yeah, my involvement was had different roles. I was on the team. I was also a building principal, and we had a number of ways we were seeking input, which I'm sure we will do something similar. We didn't have the strategic plan that we do now. And so one of the decisions we make is, like And what I shared with our building and district leaders last week was like right now we are, and my plan is we are adjusting, we are fine tuning what we're working on. And I feel good about what we set as priorities. And this is not the year to make major adjustments to what we're doing. Because as you mentioned, we're seeing positive
Impact,
results.
yeah.
And so it needs to be continuous improvement is our goal. So,
But we don't need to come up with a whole new.
right. Unless
Fancy.
that's the collective decision,
Yeah.
like that seems to be the feedback we're getting.
Well, if we put it off until next year, then it'll be the 7th year of a 6-year plan.
Right, but that's a good point. Right, so yeah, and I think the idea of getting that position to fill. And then discussing
Have a discussion after that.
have a discussion
Yes.
after that with the 5 positions filled.
Yeah.
And then, making some additional decisions, and then what we'll talk about, the superintendent. That decision, like where do all these fit together?
Time wise.
Yeah,
I wonder, since the board has not had a listening session with staff, I would prefer to see this a much more open discussion than just focused on the superintendent search. I'm looking to staff to see whether that would be what you would want. That sounds like a yes.
communicating out, because we don't want to limit to that.
Right.
And if someone doesn't want to talk about that, that isn't, so we
Well,
want
I
to
feel-
be, so I want to make sure
heard
that it's
From
open.
staff about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's one of the purposes of these
Yeah.
is to really to get feedback and have conversations, and
Yeah.
I don't think the staff one should be limited to that, and maybe we should schedule another one for staff and the search specifically after we have the 5th member on board, but hopefully they'll be on board by October 8th.
Yeah, so talking about, potentially adding another.
Possibly.
Yeah,
It
Or
depends on
maybe
the
not,
interests, I mean,
or not theming, like, we don't have to have
themes.
themes, like if that's gonna limit what the conversation's gonna be about, like, we don't want to do that. But we also want to take this opportunity, and as we
To get
do,
feedback.
we get feedback, we collect, information, e-notes you take, e-notes
Right.
that we take, they go into a folder, then we have those to, to reflect on, so.
Yeah,
I think that we can.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of time because the first one's October 8th.
right.
And we haven't published this. So that doesn't have to be.
I just think if I were a staff person reading this and I had something I'd like to bring up that wasn't superintendent search, I would say, that's not the one for me.
Right.
So I think a more open discussion with staff.
And
would
the
be
purpose
helpful.
certainly wasn't to,
Limit, no, I
to
know that,
limit,
right,
exclude someone or have them make that decision because
right.
we want to get some specific feedback.
maybe when it gets advertised, we could, maybe not for that one, but future ones, say these are some topics we thought maybe would.
And a
be
more
interesting or
inclusive
whatever.
list of
Yeah,
potential
when Les sent out
topics
his,
that we need to hear
Yeah.
about or we want to hear
or
about.
these things, these are things we think are important. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any input or?
I think we all agree that it's a great opportunity for us to hear from staff and the community. And that even though we probably saw less participation last year, the conversations that I participated
Were
were
good,
still
yeah.
really
Yeah.
rich and
Yeah.
I appreciated connecting with individuals that I hadn't connected with and hearing some of their concerns I wasn't aware of.
Right. Yep, I'm excited.
Okay. Next, we'll turn to the superintendent search process.
Yeah, so I've done a little bit of research and looked at the last time we went out and looked for the superintendent position. And the actual initial kind of kickoff was in January. So it was toward the end of January. It was actually January 29th through February. And there was a consultant and we worked on a consultant who went around and got feedback from various groups. So, you think about a timeline, like the window, hiring window, that process for us, the last time, which was in 2017, 18. I guess it'd be 2017, 18 that we knew. So in January, we started it. And then from there, just a number of decisions, whether when to post it, and then everything that goes into that application process, and then the screening, and then the interview. So go ahead.
Is there a general kind of state wide window, or, in my previous job, there was a particular hiring season,
Yes.
and we want to be
Yeah.
looking during that season.
Yeah, and I think that this is about
In
that
there,
time.
okay,
Yeah, so it's February, March, when jobs get posted on WASA, ABSP, when individuals make decisions or boards make decisions regarding the future of that position.
Okay.
So it doesn't always have to be that way, but I would say during the time that it's early spring. And then decisions are usually made by April, May, so then the superintendent to be can like do some
An
sort of
opportunity.
shadowing or
Right.
an opportunity to meet with individuals.
okay. Any questions about that? Rest of the board?
So I just thought it'd be helpful to, like, what we did last time, kind of model like that as a potential, like a starting place. So you have some ideas on what it was that happened here, and then some decisions can be made about, specifically with the process and whether there's a consultant decision, so.
Yeah, the key decisions for us are in November, December. One is whether to do an outside search. And the second one is, if we do we want to spend $25,000-$30,000
Or 50, yeah,
for consultants? So there's a lot for us as a board to weigh in November, December.
Right, and if there's some details that you're looking for regarding cost, and Chuck, what you just mentioned about, so what I presented is when a consultant came in, and it just so happened that we knew we had time to make the decision, and so we have time. And so if you need some details regarding cost, and maybe if you want me to reach out to ESD 112 and kind of get their thoughts, and do they support in these decisions, that is a valuable partnership with us. They are very helpful. Tim Merlino, I had a recent meeting with him, and so I feel like that's something I could ask him, and he could advise us.
And I think involving the community as well,
yes,
putting out maybe a survey of some sort or something and get their input, after we've, obviously we've had some time this year and stuff. I don't know, just something to think about. I'd like to involve the community too.
Absolutely, and so Les probably has some,
That's what did you see what I was looking at?
yeah, so possibly surveys that we have done previously
Yeah.
that we could tweak, because it's been
Sure.
6 years,
Yeah.
7 years, so we could make some adjustments to that.
I'm hopeful that just to be blunt, I am hopeful that we can avoid the expense in tight budget years or not of spending our money to pay outside
I would
people
second
to
that.
help us.
Yeah,
That's my opinion.
gotcha.
Yep, me too.
Okay, any other thoughts or wonders about that? We just
Search
hadn't talked
process.
about it, and so
Yeah.
I thought it would be good to
Yep.
Yeah.
to get it out there and get your thoughts, and then I've got some things that I can work on in preparing for the next time we talk about it.
Perfect. Okay, and last item on our agenda is executive responsibility 10, asset protection, and I'll turn it over to.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. So Les Brown, Director of Technology, Communications and Facilities, is going to share a presentation about ER 10 asset protection. And there's many components to this ER, and Les will go over in detail, I think, those different categories of this ER, which you have information about. And I know that you'll probably have some follow-up questions. So just as he goes through it, I think there's 4 or 5 slides. Once he's done, feel free to ask questions of Les based on the information here.
So I'm Les Brown, as Aaron introduced me. So ER 10, like Aaron said, is a really broad executive responsibility. So it covers a whole bunch of different ways that the district takes steps to mitigate risk, to protect the district's assets, and to make sure that we're being good stewards of the public dollar. It requires, or the board has a policy in place which requires us to get board permission to sell or to acquire property. That's one of the major expenses. And that's outlined in board policy 6882. It's also in compliance with state law. It's not something that the district gets to do without the board taking specific action. When we're doing that, it ends up being a very public process. There are some really specific pieces of it around the negotiation of prices that might be done during an executive session, but the whole process itself was done through the open public meetings process that we're using. We take steps within our facility maintenance. Aaron talked earlier about our grounds crew. We have 2 grounds people as well as 2 maintenance people. They are doing an amazing job doing preventative maintenance around the school district, keeping all of our buildings. We have, I think, 8 or 9 different buildings that we're maintaining, as well as the campuses and the athletic fields. They're working hard all through the summer to keep things in good shape. And then tackling some of these projects so that we're keeping our buildings in serviceable condition. We know that there are some larger projects on the horizon. The roof is one at the high school is one of those, as well as some of the other things as our buildings reach that 25 to 30 years since they've been remodeled. We'll be looking to do some of that work. Our facilities lead, or not lead, supervisor Jessica is an amazing staff person. She's really good at partnering with our energy providers, whether that's Clark Public Utilities or the PUD or Skamania PUD, and finding ways to invest in facilities so that we can avoid ongoing costs associated with keeping our buildings warm and cool. So she's tackled some of the lighting projects, some of the heating projects. She's on their short list of people to reach out to whenever they have an opportunity, which is excellent for us. It means that we have an early opportunity when there's a set of funding or a grant or matching money that we might be able to tap into. And her kind of dogged work around this has really helped us leverage pretty modest investments from the district to keep our buildings comfortable, but also to reduce our energy usage, which is a great way to be better stewards of the public dollar. The TAPS sensitive assets, there were 2 attachments that we included in the board packet along with kind of a write-up of that. Every year we do an inventory process. We cycle in a 2-year cycle between the buildings taking on a little bit more of the responsibility for it versus district staff kind of double checking parts of it. This was the year where the district staff were double checking some of the inventory. We're locating around 9,000 items. That's a whole bunch of different types of district devices, but like in this room, it's like my laptop and Aaron's laptop, as well as the other staff ones. There's the wireless access point, the TV, the camera, and then a handful of other things that'll be in here that have district tags on them. For each of the buildings, we create a sheet of the things that are in that building, and we ask the staff people responsible for it to help us account for it, and then they sign off saying that they did that work. The technology staff have been going back and double checking those sheets. So they go back and work with those people to make sure that I'll like to provide that second layer of scrutiny. That's something that the auditors are looking for, that there's somebody independent of the room itself who does a periodic sweep to make sure that somebody's not just saying, oh yeah, I still have that. Oh yeah, I still have that. Within those 2 lists that we gave you, there's a list of things that are newly identified as missing. There's around 160 things that are on that newly identified list. That's about, actually it's lower than normal, to be honest. It's normally around 300-ish items that we can't account for. And there's a variety of ways that we lose things. Sometimes it's just that somebody has loaned something to somebody else, or it's in another building. Things are checked out to students. A whole bunch of those calculators that are on there are that. So they were checked out to a student. And for a variety of reasons, we don't know exactly which student had it. And so we have to mark it as missing. The vast majority of those come back at the end of the year, but they don't show up as found in this process. With the other list is things that we've been looking for 6 years. So there's things that were reported to the school board back in 2019 is the first time that we reported them as missing. We've continued to look for those, but haven't located them. Some of them are things that we know they were stolen. So we filed a police report and went through that process, but we still continue to look for them. Every once in a while, law enforcement finds something and they return it, or C-Tran, like we had that happen with a Chromebook actually this past week. Somebody left a Chromebook on a bus, they turned it over, found our property of Washougal School District's tag on it. And they were nice enough to stop and give it to us, which was awesome. We work really hard to keep tracking those things so that we can turn them up. The list of things that have been missing for 6 years is lower than the list of new things, and that's because we have located a pretty good chunk of those things over those 6 years. Within our finance department, you all know that we have, I think, 7 years of clean audits now. So our last audit is wrapped up. That's a proud mark for our district. The state auditor's office provides that independent review of district finances, and a lot of reassurance for the community that we're doing the right work, that we're safeguarding the community's investments in our schools and the funds that they're giving us. We're a member of the ESD Risk Management Co-op, so we have all the standard sets of insurance that a school district has. The risk management folks are really great partners with the districts. They work really hard to be educating us around common pitfalls that school districts are doing, or making, mistakes that are happening or things that are coming up. They publish a series of materials that we use to do staff training on various types of roles to help mitigate risk, which is a benefit to us as the district that we're not having, things go wrong. It also benefits our insurance pool because it lowers the number of claims that we're filing. We have sorry, I have to read it, public official bonds and commercial crimes coverage, which is another layer of reassurance. I think in the second one, it talks about the people who have access to more than $5,000. So that's through the check writing process, are independently bonded. So there's additional reassurance or safeguards in place for people with access to funds. We have lots of approvals and authorizations for our purchasing. Any of us that work through the purchase order or the credit card process can attest that there are plenty of safeguards in place, and that a lot of people are laying eyes on things to make sure that we're being really thoughtful in how we're spending money and that we're following those processes. The school board is kept abreast. Whenever we're making really large purchases, those will go through a bid process. We'll be doing that for the roof and some of the other work that'll be funded by the capital levy. And you'll start seeing those probably this winter as we move into the next steps of that process. And there'll be a request for proposals. And ultimately, the board will approve all of those contracts because they're about those dollar values that are set in board policy. We're accepting all of the generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP is the acronym that goes with that one, which are a broad set of them. If you looked really closely at the auditor's report, you'll note that there's a few exceptions where we note those every time, where Washington state law differs from those generally accepted accounting principles. So there are things like the depreciation of assets. We don't do the same way that like a large business does. And it's typically because we hang on to assets forever. So it doesn't make sense for us to try to use the same kind of depreciation schedule. But the auditors ask us to note that so that you know that we're not doing this depreciation process. Okay. Finally, there are several other things that we work on that are minimizing risk and liability. A lot of those take place within the human resources realm. We do a lot of training with staff. That's something that Aaron has invested really heavily in over the last 5 years in his previous role. And I think we are far better prepared now to deal with student behavior and escalations in a really proactive way, so that we're really working on knowing each of the students, those things that are triggers for them, and coming up ways to safeguard people without having to do things that might put us at a higher liability. We provide safe schools training for all staff every year. I have no idea how many of those I have done, but it is an awful lot of training modules. They cover an enormous number of topics, and we kind of paraphrased a handful of the really high profile ones. The risk management people are involved in designing those. And so whenever there's a situation or a claim that comes up in another district where they feel like there's an opportunity to provide training that helps make sure people know the right sets of stuff to do, they'll adjust the training so they're not exactly the same each of the years. Our school nurses are amazing to work with. They are This time of year, they're working really hard on the individual health plans for students that have really specific medical needs. They'll do training during that last week of August and then into the first week of school to make sure that any of the staff that are working with those students have a really good handle on what to do with different types of situations that those students might experience. The paraeducators do a fundamental course of study, which is a set of trainings on 8 modules. 12 modules that cover a range of topics, but among those are safeguarding student data, as well as doing some of the positive and safe learning environment steps that make sure that our students have a really welcoming environment to be in, which helps prevent some of those longer term problems that might come up. We provide reminders to staff through our e-news articles, which are internal emails that talk about things like cybersecurity, ransomware, phishing attacks. I think sometimes we send those to the school board because you all are also, like, you're needing to pay attention to those because you're also a potential target. Or you're the potential victim of being impersonated, because people might say, oh, this is Jim, I want to see blah, and then they ask the school district for information. And we work really closely with our human resources, payroll, and accounting folks, so that they're allowed to push back whenever we ask for things that feel like they're outside of the norm. Our payroll department does things like verifying direct deposit change requests so that people can't reroute somebody's paycheck. And we've learned a lot from kind of negative situations that have happened in other districts. And we've implemented additional layers to make sure that we're not falling prey to those types of attacks. And then all of those are ways that we're kind of safeguarding ourselves. And then finally, on the intellectual property, we do backup electronic files that are on district computers nightly to offsite servers. We take advantage of the fact that we have buildings in multiple different locations. We back things up in different places so that, God forbid, a building burned down, we have a copy of the stuff that's in that building somewhere else. The student information that's in Cumulative, which is the really huge database of all the student as well as our HR and purchasing information, is backed up by WSIPC, which is the co-op that manages that system for us. And they keep all of that in different places around the state. So even if something really significant happened here, the data in Cumulative would still be available. So we have business continuity if in the event of a really major disaster. So questions?
How do you keep track of all this stuff? There's
There's
a
an-
lot of stuff.
Yeah, there is an awful lot of stuff. So
It's just a lot of stuff. I can't even imagine like a bigger district. Like,
yeah, usually I bring the pile of like inventory paperwork because it's a fairly impressive
Yeah.
pile.
well, I always look through the missing stuff and like,
Yeah.
oh, really keep track of that.
And did you say it's every 2 years?
So we inventory every year. The responsibility for it shifts back and forth between the building staff and the district staff. So every other year, district staff go back and double check the sheets. And make sure, we check all the sheets to make sure that they're signed, but we also then spot check a set of the sheets every other year.
Yes, for example, I got a sheet in the spring that said the technology that was identified that I'm responsible for. And so fortunately, there's only 2 items. I was able to check those 2 items and then give it back to Les, who's just down the hall.
Yeah.
But so in a building that has 90 staff members,
Right.
then kind of to your point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of,
It's a lot to keep track of.
yeah,
Yeah,
lots
so
of
we,
activities.
we divide it in contour. So
Yeah.
we do ask staff to really participate in that process because they're far more knowledgeable about where things are stored within
Right.
each of the rooms.
Right.
And usually if something's not there, then it can trigger them to go like, oh yeah, I gave that to so-and-so, and then we can kind of do that, trying to figure things out. And we did find, or we believe we found the floor scrubber that's on that list, because that it was on loan to Hathaway. There's even a note on it that says they think that's what it was. But because we didn't lay eyes on it, we don't unmark it as missing because we want to be transparent to the process and then have integrity around when we looked for it, it wasn't there.
So tomorrow, one of us will be.
We'll be looking for the
Scrubber floor.
Yeah, it's a very
We're
large
looking
thing.
for
It should
that
not
large
be-
scrubber. Yes.
yeah, it's like-
I saw like an apple peeler or something, and like,
No, this
but,
is
yeah.
but it was, no, I mean, it's something I'm sure that they need.
Yeah, the irony being, it's not the first time that I think that scrubber has
Yeah.
gone missing. And they're like a Zamboni, like they're
Right,
they're
it's not
big.
something like.
It's not like,
small.
it's not like you're gonna
No.
carry it out in the building, like it's motorized and.
Like, where are you hiding that thing?
Well, I think it's impressive. There's like a couple stationary bikes that went missing. You're like, how does that
They're
It's
stationary.
stationary. It's stationary.
Can't ride that one off.
Right, so the stationary bikes likely were sold at a surplus sale. That would be my strong
Oh.
suggestion for what happened to them. And then we didn't realize, either we didn't realize they had a tag or the tag had fallen off or gotten lost. And we weren't able to say this bike was this piece of equipment.
yeah.
And when we sold it, we couldn't say we sold that specific thing. And so
What's
we
the
used
dollar
this
amount on it?
process to,
What's the dollar amount on putting a tag on an item? Just curious.
well, the tag
$1,000
itself
or
costs like
something, or-
50 cents, you know, and it does take people going and doing that. So.
No, at what
What
dollar
the-
amount?
Oh, I'm sorry.
you-
For-
I totally missed the,
Required
like,
to-
I have no idea.
We
what
love
the
that
cost
you came
of
up with
it
that.
is. Yeah, I think our board policy says $400. You'll note if you look
Yeah.
really closely at the list that there are a whole bunch of things that are under that
Yes.
dollar value.
Yeah.
When somebody sticks a tag on something, we keep tracking it.
Okay,
So a whole bunch of those $17 calculators. It is, it's good. It sheds a light on a need for us to be working on paying attention to where the calculators are.
yeah,
We should never have tagged them. They should be tracked in a
Yeah,
different way
yeah,
and they
fair
should be
enough.
in classroom sets because they're not something valuable enough to be doing that.
And I just-
There are like specific exceptions, like the board asked us, like kind of you all, but way back when the school board said you should still be tracking all the iPads. So even if they're not $400, which they're not, they're $329 plus tax. We still want to track the iPads because you want to know all those are. The same thing with the Chromebooks. So generally they're not that expensive, but we still have tags on all those things because we need to keep track of them. And that's the easiest way to do it.
with the Chromebooks, you said they're issued to freshmen and they keep them for the 4 years.
Yeah.
Same with iPads, they're issued in,
No, the
Third
iPads
grade or
in
something,
K5
or-
generally, or yeah, in K5 don't generally go home with the students, so they're in card safe classrooms.
okay.
And then they're inventoried by cart.
Um. The ones on the 2019 list that have been missing, they just disappear from our inventory as of this year, is that? true?
Yeah, so with when the board approves the rest of the ER,
Yeah,
part of doing that will be accepting the inventory, which will let us then purge those records.
okay. And what's the policy or the practice of replacing missing items?
So it kind of depends on what the business need is. So
Right.
for things that are stolen, so like several years ago, we had a bunch of like there was a break-in in the maintenance department where they stole excuse me, a bunch of the lawn tools and some of the hand tools out of the vehicles. We filed an insurance claim and then used the insurance money to pay to replace the hand tools and the other items. So like a Chromebook or an iPad is stolen, if we know which student's device it was, we'll find the student and then we'll replace the device. But if there's a situation where something was lost or stolen that's no longer needed, like I think there might be an iPad, not an iPad, an iPod on one of the lists, which nobody uses iPods anymore. And really it's like the size of a deck of or pack of gum, right? So it's lost in somebody's desk. That's my theory.
Yeah,
And we just haven't figured out where it is. But we wouldn't replace something like that.
right. Chuck, do you have anything?
No questions.
I still have a couple of questions. As I look through the list of newly missing items, a couple of things jumped out at me that made me sad. Specifically the science materials, equipment, microscope, spectrophotometers, the human skeleton replica. And if they're missing, then every kid coming after doesn't have access to those kind of essential science teaching tools. Likewise with the vocational, the router and the grinder and stuff. I wonder if there's a better mechanism of keeping track of some of those. I mean,
Yeah, so
in the shop, I mean, a lot of construction work going on, and there's always room for a market for a router. And it's not something you necessarily just stick in your backpack without breaking your back. And
they're
the
fairly large.
human skeleton, and the other was the control booth. I mean, 18 items disappeared from the control booth in the auditorium, and that seems like a pretty big hit that would render the auditorium much less functional than it used to be.
Right, and in general, those bigger collections of things are either people not using the surplus process, And then, or us not completely accounting for things as we're doing the public sale, so we missed tag numbers. Or there's a collection of things that got moved out of the control booth and they got put somewhere else, but then people
Not
forgot
sure
where they
where.
put them. So
Okay,
the auditorium is actually
good shape.
like 10 or 12 different spaces. There's a whole series of rooms, as well as attic spaces. And my guess is that big chunk of that stuff is somewhere in one of those spaces and they just can't find it.
Okay,
And it, you know, so again, like the floor scrubber, some of those things are frequent flyers for going missing.
right.
So they go missing, they get found, they go missing, they get found, they go missing, they get found.
It seems like the users would notice
Yeah.
pretty soon, if I'm supposed to scrub the floors and there's no Zamboni.
Yeah.
I would probably raise it.
Yeah.
Someone's attention to that.
Yeah, which, you know, so in the inventory, there was that note saying that the name of the custodian thought that they had loaned it to Hathaway.
Right.
But because they didn't have something that said that, and then they couldn't confirm that that's where it was, they still mark it as missing.
Okay.
With the shop equipment, generally, like there's a couple things. One is that in the metal shop in particular, some of the equipment is operating at really high temperatures. And so the tags melt off of them.
Yeah,
Other things that are like the drill presses and stuff like that, they use lubricating oils. The oil will make the stickers stop sticking.
yeah,
You know that because
Yes.
of your background, but it stops being sticky and then they just slide off. We'll hand write numbers on there, but those often get worn off over time. So those are all ways that they can have an item that shows up as missing, but it might actually still be there. The staff people are supposed to write down when they find things that should be tagged that are not on the list,
yeah.
which would help correlate those things so that we can say, oh, this is like this stationary bike is this one. But if they're not doing that like to enough detail, then we can't say for certain that those are those same things. And so we might see that there's a new router that has no purchase information, and then there's an old router that went missing because they re-tagged it. But then we can't say
Interesting,
for
yeah.
certain that they're the same if we didn't have the serial number or some other identifier.
Yeah, and it's the district office staff does the inventory or the building principals who does this.
So the staff assigned each one of the spaces, so like Aaron did his space.
Okay,
And then there's a second person who's going through, which is the IT person, is going through and double checking the sheets. So like they come and double check my sheets, which mine are in this building, mine are of them, they're the most complicated because I have the most stuff in my office.
so, but something like a drill press, if I were a shop teacher, item number or not, I
Right.
would know there used to be a drill press sitting there and now there's no
Yeah, and
drill press.
they do work with the person doing the inventory, works with the person assigned to the space to try to make sure that we can say that this is that thing. If there's any mismatch, so like a serial number, the brand of the equipment, you know, or there's just a general sense that like we're just not confident enough, we'll still mark it as missing.
Yeah,
Because we want to have integrity to the like
the process. or whatever.
the person doing the second check needs to know, and we reinforce that with them that like, you know, if you look at it and you're not confident that that's what that is, then it should still get marked missing.
Okay, so my last question, in terms of the science equipment, that's my background, so. Spectrophotometer, you can do certain kinds of experiments. No spectrophotometer, you can't do any of those experiments. It's a pretty essential piece of equipment in any kind of chemical or biochemical analysis. Is there a mechanism by which the science teacher would come back and request that equipment so they can do the
Yeah, I think
teaching that they need? And is that another way we find out that it really is missing, not just
Right.
misidentified or misplaced?
Yeah, so the schools have a budget that they use for replacing or for purchasing new items that come up. And that would be a way that they would access funds to replace things like the microscopes or the other scientific equipment.
Yeah. Same with shops, I presume. I mean,
Yeah.
there must be, it's a building budget for
Yeah.
replacement. Thank you.
Right, like, so, and actually the wood shop and the metal shop would be CTE funds, would also be an option for replacing those.
Okay.
Good questions. Thank you
Yeah.
for asking those questions. And as we attempt to improve this process and just
Big
all the possibilities. Let's identify some, the staff members not present. You know, and I think the science room that has probably, I don't know, 27 to 30 cabinets
Right,
and
full of
just,
stuff.
yeah, full stuff. So, and
Yeah.
more than likely, it's here.
Somewhere.
Yeah,
And it's just a small tech team. And we've had different years, we've had different people doing this. So sometimes we've hired I paid staff extra hours to do this work because there's a lot of classrooms, there's a lot of
Oh, yeah.
rooms. And then you talk about the high school
Yeah,
and the behind the drama area and just all the different places where something could get set down and it's
Behind the
placed.
curtain, yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, it's, but again, I appreciate that we
Okay,
have,
yeah.
right, the process, although not perfect. And we have items that we hopefully find, and when they're needed, by then we get creative and we can go purchase them or we go find them.
that's
We're
what
gonna find them. so-
Find a
yeah,
donation.
if it was something like that, it's needed, then.
Yeah.
And if it's a large price
Yeah.
thing, I'm pretty sure that most of them are probably found because it's like, okay, now I really need to find this thing. And a lot of
Right,
situations,
and it kind of is a follow-up to the conversation about things that repeatedly go missing. And then get found. When we run into those situations over and over again, we'll start kind of coaching the staff person that if they don't need it, that like, let's
Move
circle
it
it
out,
Yeah.
yeah.
you know, so that at least it gets it off the list and we can do it while we still know where it is, rather than have it just keep going missing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's generally like that iPod that was floating around. It probably went missing before and then we didn't take that step to say, yeah, you're never gonna use that again. Here, give it to me and let's surplus it and we can get rid of it while we still know where it is.
And just on a side note, the surplus sale happened
June
late
29th.
June. And it was at the old ice barn. And I happened to be there. I was not shopping. I was just there checking to see how it was going. And I ran
Go
into
get an iPod.
a number of people who were either staff members, community members, and one couple in particular, they were purchasing items and then they take these to a school that they have
Donating.
in Gambia.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I happen to know this couple and this story and the school. I've never been there in the Gambia, but the individual that his nephews graduated from Washougal. So I was the principal when they were going to Washougal, so I have some understanding and I just, just the fact that our items that were, and there were some science models that I didn't see them on the list of missing that went through the
Well, it shouldn't.
process. And they were gonna be put in a van and then shipped to the Gambia
That's so cool.
for students to use items that we had identified as surplus, but they wanted. So and Naren was there and helping them and making sure they were in one location because they wanted to pick those up early the following week. So I wasn't aware of that. And so to hear that and to understand where those items go, like that's a great use. And I'm sure that they're there and they're being used.
Yeah.
the
Appreciate it.
flip side of that is, well, question about that, how much money does that raise? $1,000 or something, or 10,000, not just.
I
ballpark?
don't have that number off. It was like 10,000.
Okay, just
It's a
ballpark.
relatively small amount.
Right,
So in the years where we're doing a larger adoption of the
Materials,
student devices, so
yeah.
the Chromebooks or the iPads, we might get like 20 or 30,000.
and then the flip side, often, the private sector will divest themselves of perfectly useful equipment as their goals and projects change, and I know I picked up a whole bunch of stuff that I used for 30 years from Amgen, from their surplus. It wasn't a sale, it was a donation, but
Yeah, so occasionally we have those connections and those partnerships and we seek those opportunities. And so it's interesting, and I was gonna mention this, a couple of the stationary bikes, like I was involved in getting those as donations. But once we take them on and it's worth, has a certain value, then we tag
Right,
them,
yeah.
it's a donation. So it didn't cost us any money,
right,
but then it goes missing. So you see it, it's on
Yeah.
the list as an item that had great value, right? And I know that they were used, but then they break down and we don't want to necessarily invest in fixing them. So
Yeah.
So anyway, it's interesting what happened with donated items. So we're really careful with what's being donated. If we're gonna take something on, and first there's a process if it's worth more than $1,000,
right.
but then we own it. And so we need to manage it, we need to take care of it. And so we need to keep track of it. So, but if you got connections, we're always looking for opportunities.
But in,
Thousand
like,
miles away.
yeah, the state of Washington does also help curate a surplus process. Both
Get a
Jessica and I
warehouse, yeah.
get periodic notifications about
Uh-huh.
types of equipment.
From Washington
Um,
State or something.
yeah.
Other school districts.
Right, and we have
Yes.
gotten things like our big box truck, I think, was bought through the state
Okay.
surplus
That's great.
process, and I think at least one or two of our other vehicle, like the service pickups were purchased through that process. So we're always looking at what the state has available and seeing if we have a need and they have something available. They're not as cost competitive as I would, like, it's not, it's not like it's $5, you know, it's
Yeah.
like- they're like $15,000, and it's like, really? Like, that's the used price for that? Like, holy cow.
Can't you cut us a deal?
And you know, in our the old transportation building, the bus barn, it has items that we're storing. And just recently, we went to the bus barn and found some furniture that matched the furniture that we have here. So we recycle it. It's a great place to have storage. That's where the surplus sale was out of, was out of that building. So we stage a lot of things there. Yeah. Okay,
Thank you, Les.
Yes.
if there are no more questions, that was our last item.
Right.
Yeah,
Somebody want to move to adjourn?
move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So
Want to do that?